What's up, friends? My name's Georgie, and you are listening to the Just Breathe podcast, where I'll be talking all things breathing to help empower you guys to use the power of your breath to harness your bodies and minds. In today's powerful conversation, I'll be chatting with Melody Lubin. Melody's passion is combining her knowledge of the physical body with the energetic and emotional body, which, attuning to Reiki in 2016, has guided her to really bring the feminine and masculine energy together, the yin and the yang. Melody is continuously developing her knowledge on trauma release, sacred sexuality and embodiment work, all of which she has combined to be able to intuitively guide people through layers of conditioning and bring them back to their truth. Understanding that the most sacred relationship we can have is with ourselves, Melody's coaching sessions are returning you to love. They are inviting you to explore the ways of having a relationship with yourself, to connect you to your deepest emotions and bring you back to your feminine power. Melody and I had such a powerful and insightful conversation all about our connection to our own bodies, particularly as women, and how that intimate connection with yourself is so important and affects so many different areas of your life. A little bit of housekeeping. If you haven't already, don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the Just Breathe podcast. Let's keep on building that strong breathing community. Connection is so important right now, and there's nothing more empowering than connecting people through the power of the breath. All right, let's crack right on with today's powerful conversation. I really hope you enjoy it and you walk away feeling empowered and inspired. This is episode 36 of Just Breathe with Melody Lubin. What's up, Melody? How's it going?
Hi, love. How are you?
I'm really good. Thank you. Speaking to you from halfway across the world. That's crazy.
Yeah, I think it is the other side of the world.
Well, yeah. So Melody is in Australia right now. Whereabouts are you in Australia?
So I'm in the Sunshine Coast, so I'm on the east coast of Australia. So
Beautiful.
the other side. Yeah.
Oh, beautiful. Oh my goodness. And so is it winter for you right now?
Yeah, I was actually thinking about this today. It's winter, but the days are still like 21, 22 degrees. And I did go for a swim in, yes, perfect.
Okay.
But the nights are chillier.
Okay.
And I went for a swim in the ocean today, and I was like, swimming in the ocean in winter. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, could you class that as like a cold dip if it's 21 degrees?
It was cold. It was cold.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
happening.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. But I'd love to jump right in. I think this is quite a good segue anyway, to sort of share, if you're comfortable, your journey from the last year of what brought you to Australia on this crazy journey. Of course, I met you a good few years ago working at Boom Cycle in London, awesome spin studio, and you were vibing it out on the bike there. And now we're chatting on Zoom and you're in Australia. So, you know, what is that journey? I'm fascinated to know.
Cool. So I left London at the end of 2019, and that's where I guess I started this journey into this sacred sexuality realm. And I've always been obsessed with the physical body, and I've taught spinning, and I've studied Pilates, and I studied dance when I was at school, and I'm just very obsessed with kind of the anatomy of this place that we have. And I was on my spiritual journey in London, and I just really wanted to have something that felt more sacred, like a more sacred way to be with the body than to be at a boxing class or to be on a spin bike. Like that, for sure, there's sacred moments within that, but something that felt more honoring and of reverence to the physical
richer
body.
almost. I feel.
Yeah, so I found a training course that I wanted to do, and it was originally in Australia, actually. And I was like, if I'm going to go all the way to Australia, I feel like I'm going to stay. And then it got moved to Bali. So I started in Bali in 2019 in October. Yeah, did the training, and then I moved to Australia because I'd already planned to come out here. And yeah, Australia has just been this journey of constantly leaning into my edges and expanding and really being in a community of people that are kind of obsessed with self-development and awareness, and like they have a very different view to sexuality than we do in the UK.
Really?
Yeah, the sex work is legal in some of the what they called to some of the states. So in New South Wales, sex work is legal. There's lots of legislation around it and that kind of thing. So they are a bit more advanced, I would say. But there is still a lot of suppression, oppression, and contraction around sexual expression.
Yeah, it's still, would you say worldwide, it's still somewhat of a taboo subject, something that should be kept behind closed doors, that should be private and personal?
Yeah, 100%, 100%, unfortunately, around the world. And we hold so much shame around this, right? And
guilt, shame.
Yeah, there's such it is the biggest work. Like once we sexually liberate ourselves, then we are so much more expressed within every single interaction and every single way that we possibly can be, because sexuality holds the biggest shadows, right? We have things like predators within men and women, both predators, right? And then we have things around like the porn industry and just seeing women and men in pleasure. Like there's so much shadow in this realm. So it's like, how can we begin to celebrate this part of ourselves and really have like a deep honoring and reverence for this expression? And it's like, it's so basic because it's what happens to create life, right? There's nothing shameful around it. There's no taboo within this. It's like what we actually have to do to procreate and exist as humans. So where has this all come from?
Of course. And, you know, even spiritually, what's sort of coming up for me is that, you know, if physically it is a coming together, you know, sometimes of course, two women, two men, but the masculine and the feminine as such, but then completing your sexuality within you is a coming together of the masculine and feminine within yourself, that, you know, Shakti and Shiva, it's all coming together. And that is such beautiful work. But the thing with self-help is that I think a lot of people assume that it's all rainbows and sunshines and that you do yoga and you meditate and you have this wonderful time. And it's like the real journey, the real spiritual path is filthy, in the way more so, not sexually filthy, but as in like there's so much shadow, it's painful, there's tears. You have to, I say filthy because on my spiritual journey, I feel like many times, and it will happen many times again, I have fallen over, got my face so muddy, got back up again, white, or even got back up again. And I have this image, and I even have this image of you from your amazing social media posts, standing up with your face just covered in dirt, but just standing there and just being with that and just being like getting muddy, you know, and not saying, no, I'm not pretending like everyone else to be this pristine, hair tied back, makeup on image that people say I should be. I'm going to be muddy and raw, and I'm going to dance in the mud, and I'm going to dance with that shadow.
100%. I feel like the spiritual communities globally love this bypassing. You know, it's like, oh, love and light, and like, let's all positive. And it's like, that's not real, you know, because you're not actually feeling the depths of your emotions. And also within that, not even just the depth of your emotions, but like the depth of our fullness capacity. Like the deeper we go, the higher we get to expand.
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of I mean, you've already sort of touched on it, that the journey with your sexuality is the deepest journey possibly you can go on, because it's such a raw expression of yourself, isn't it? And do you think your sexual desires actually are sort of a communication
as to what you need to grow, that we should listen rather than adding the shame and the guilt and saying, oh no, I shouldn't think that, or I shouldn't crave that, you know, that's a bit out there. That actually those sexual desires are the key, they're unlocking to the door of growth.
100%.
Really?
Like,
okay.
100%. I feel like we experience these desires, and then because of societal conditioning, or like what we should and shouldn't, and taboo, we suppress them. But actually, when we're able just to speak to them or acknowledge them, the charge behind them kind of dissipates. And then underneath that is the lesson. So then it's like, okay, cool. So what is actually true here? Is this actually something that I want? Or is it like another part of me that is needing feeding, or coming from a space of lack of fulfillment, you know? Because that's so much what our desire is, right? Is this emptiness within inside ourselves. And then we're like, I want this, I want that. And there's this charge. And when we can release the charge, it's like, okay, now I can actually be discerning of what actually I do want.
And in terms of, it does. But what's actually coming up for me right now, and I'm interested to hear your view on this, is when we're talking about sexual desire, the assumption is we're talking about sexual desire with someone else, but actually the desire that holds the most shame is women actually touching themselves, pleasuring themselves. And what in your teachings and your trainings, your education, your work that you do, how much of a journey with a lot of women, or even yourself, is that, you know, female masturbation is a huge taboo topic. And I remember even in school, it was shameful, or there was so much guilt around it. Whereas actually, I personally think it should be encouraged. That how can you know what you want from someone else with your body if you haven't explored it yourself, right?
Yeah, I feel like because we have been told to outsource, right? So like, if we want to procreate, we're creating with another human, and within that, our pleasure is basically based on the ability to be with somebody else.
Right.
So if you're with a partner, you're therefore having your needs fulfilled.
Right.
And we're never encouraged to explore, like, some of the journeys that I take women on are extremely simple in my eyes, you know, and it can just be simply just exploring the face through touch. And the amount of women that are like, I have never ever touched my face in that way before. And they can be anywhere between the age of 19 and like 50 and have never stroked their face before. And it's like, wow, we are so disconnected. You know, like, this is intimacy at very basic of, this is not sexuality, this is intimacy with self. And it's like, that brings up a lot of shame for people. And then when you start to get to like the genitals and those kind of things, this is like a full no-go zone for people. No-go zone.
But what does that say? What does that say about sort of our society, or our, you know, the way we've sort of been programmed? That, you know, do you think it's actually a coincidence? I guess not, that we as women are actually afraid to embrace and touch our own bodies and say, no, this is mine, and this is beautiful, not this is something to be had by someone else, you know. And that I can only allow myself to feel that pleasure if I'm given approval by someone who is of higher caliber than myself.
Well, this is the piece of like, that our pleasure is in somebody else's hands,
right?
And that it's only activated when there's another person, whether it's male or female, whatever your sexual preference. But that's that piece of like outsourcing our pleasure. And this is like the full disconnect piece. And then there's a shame piece as well, because not only do others shame us, but we shame ourselves, because we don't believe that experiencing pleasure is our birthright. We don't believe that. We believe that that's like a co-creation thing, and it is absolutely a co co-creation thing for sure. And it is also totally available to us whenever we choose to have it. We just have to choose it.
It's a choice.
It's a
that
choice.
Makes so much
and
sense.
I think it's fear, like there's so much fear around reclaiming these aspects of ourselves. Like, what does it mean if I'm able to experience all this pleasure by myself? Does it mean that the relationship that I'm in actually isn't of service to me anymore?
Wow, that is a huge point.
Especially for the older generation, like our parents' generation, for example, that are less our generation is particularly fluid, you know, like, oh, we go traveling and like, oh, I don't like my job, I'm going to quit. But for the older generation, if they're able to experience pleasure by themselves, what does that mean for their entire reality around them?
Their perception is shifted.
Exactly. Exactly.
Wow.
It's big work.
That is huge work. And I mean, I can't even imagine how powerful it must be when women actually come together and do this work, you know, in the space of each other, being held by other women. You know, there's so many women's circles popping up all over the place. It's sort of, it's coming back. It's like, I had another wonderful girl, Megan, who has a women's circle on my podcast, and we talked about how it feels like a homecoming, because this isn't anything new. You know, women's circles have been around as long as women have been around. And you know, if you read the book The Red Tent and all these different things, there's women have been bleeding together and, you know, dancing together and exploring together for centuries. But it's actually only the modern world where we've stopped listening. We've really stopped connecting and listening, and that wild, raw, beautiful side, it's like it's been lost. And it feels like nowadays, with all people like yourself and Megan, is a homecoming where people are like, fuck this, let's bring it back, you know?
Bring it back to self, and like reclaim the parts of myself that I have been so disconnected and shamed. You know, like that being a woman is like one of the most epic gifts that we get to experience in this lifetime, for whatever reason we've chosen to be women, and to like experience the full range of actually what being a woman is, as opposed to like this masculine woman or this independent woman, or like all these things that we have created for ourselves as protection mechanisms. You know, it's protection. It's like this, a little bit of a segue, but I was thinking the other day, like, since I've really connected to my wild women, I've stopped wearing tampons, and I've stopped wearing things that keep my bleed inside of me, because actually it's not like this thing that it's like, oh, just put in a tampon and keep it tidy and then take it out and flush it down the toilet and nobody will know about it. It's actually this really like painful, messy, raw, earthly experience of like being deeply with my womb, you know? And it's like, why would I want to keep that blood inside of me so that everybody else around me can feel comfortable and like my tampon string is tucked in? It's like, nah, I just want to bleed, you know? And like, that's okay.
You know? It's like somewhat of a spiritual death and rebirth. Sorry to interrupt you there. It's a shedding.
Shedding of all these societal confinements, you know. And it's like, actually being a woman is this extremely wild ride. So why are we trying to tame it? Why not enjoy it? Embrace it, you know?
And you know, in doing this work, and I really want to delve even deeper into what happens in your work when these women do come together and share their stories and share their pain that they probably have never been able to share, maybe even with their partner, because there is so much shame around this maybe desire to feel pleasure, but without the input of anyone else and without the touch of anyone else, but to go, no, I want to, there's so much of ourselves that I think is just unexplored, and that we're so afraid to unleash because we think we'll be shamed by society. And that goes back way in history to, like, you know, the witches being burned at the stake and all that, you know. But I want to know what happens in the circles when they come together, could you talk a little bit about into that, and then I'll actually ask you the next question after, because this is just such a beautiful topic that I want to delve into that while we're there.
Yeah, for sure. It's funny, I was literally just having a conversation with a friend, because the women's circles are amazing, and I think the next stage is like men witnessing these women's circles. But I'll go into that at another stage. But
yeah,
witnessing, when you get to see a woman in her pleasure, and I was literally just writing a post on it as well, so it's really cool that you're asking me, but when you get to see a woman in her pleasure, it is probably like one of the most sacred, reverent experiences that you will ever get to witness. Like, it is really something that is an honor and a privilege to be able to see. And I honestly believe that sharing ourselves in this way, first of all, is extremely vulnerable, right? You're sharing the most raw parts of yourself. It's extremely vulnerable. And I believe that when we are able to hold ourselves in the witnessing, and you're just like purely honoring and seeing a woman in her pleasure, that is where a lot of shame and also just like unhealthy patterns shift instantly, because there is no way that after witnessing a woman in her pleasure that you would ever want to take that away from her.
Wow.
Ever. And like take that away from her in the way of like abusing her or shouting at her down the street or slut shaming her, or it doesn't even, however it looks, but you would never want to take that sacredness away. And it is the work that is needed all around the world, because I honestly believe that it will shift everything. I believe it will shift the porn industry. I believe it will shift like old paradigms of the way that men across the world treat and see women. I just think that it is like the key to unlocking and creating a deep, deep respect and reverence. And when these women, when they come out of being witnessed in their pleasure, there's such a softness to them. Like there's a power, but a softness, you know, because balance. They've exposed themselves to you. And like erotic energy is powerful. You know, like sex, money, power. These are all those things: sex, money, power, sex, money, power. And like when that's like that energy, it's like magnetic, it's irresistible. It's just like this.
It's almost indestructible as well.
Yeah, completely. And it's like an invitation of like, this is me. Can you can. You know, it's like, can you have this? You can have this. You just have to let yourself.
Because I mean, there's a lot in the modern age of women even turning against each other as well, which it's not meant to be that way, right? In that the jealousy, the slut shaming, like you said, the judgment, the guilt that we put on each other as women. I think that's such a powerful experience that would have such an impact on that, because actually there's a lot of women that have a lot of anger in them. And I think, do you think women have a fear to really unleash their anger? I think I saw a video on your social media of women letting it go, just letting it rip, like roaring, just releasing their anger. How important is that in being able to soften and connect to your feminine, but to get that anger out?
Yeah, it's huge. It's actually so that like sisterhood thing is actually instinctual. So back in kind of cave woman and caveman days, we needed our man. And if there was another woman that was going to come along and take our man, that's our protector. So that's the man that is like fighting off animals and all these kind of things. So we actually instinctually have that thing because we need our protector. Obviously we're not living in those days anymore, so it's like, how can we then connect with each other and really see each other as women and like understand that if I have something, it doesn't mean that you can't have that same thing also.
Yeah, and I think perhaps it's sort of that being on a level with each other, that again, I want to be clear that it's not all sunshines and rainbows and skipping holding hands, that you know it's about boundaries, it's about respect, and it's about communication. It's that going on this sacred sexual journey, people are still going to piss you off, people are still going to step too far, but it's or people, you know, you're still, it's not like the jealousy and the whatever goes away, but you can respond to it better, and
100%.
you can connect on a higher level that serves the wider collective. And that's why I think this work is just so powerful in its service to the wider collective.
Yeah. And I think on a very basic level, if you're experiencing jealousy, my advice would be, what is it? Like, find the self-inquiry to be like, okay, what is it that this woman has that I don't have? So is she expressed in her sexuality? Does she have a relationship? Like, what are the pieces that she has? And then how can I create that for myself?
Yeah.
Because jealousy is just like a gate. It's a gateway. It's a gateway to find out exactly everything, is a gateway for you to self-inquire. So it's like, oh, I'm feeling this trigger. Cool. What is the piece that she has that I don't yet have? I have not yet owned or claimed or expressed or explored. And how can I do that?
Yeah. Well, and it's true. Anytime you're triggered by someone else, right, it's actually a blessing and a message, because whatever that person does is actually slightly irrelevant. It's actually more how that is triggering you. And it's like, oh, actually, it's not her. This is my experience. It could be anyone. Yeah, it could be anyone at all. This is my experience and my perception of reality that is bringing this up in me. So what inner work do I need to do now? Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I completely, and that goes for every ex-partner, for every, and, you know, of course, I have to acknowledge there are some horrific things that happen in the world, which I always think is important to mention when we go into using your adversity to power you through. You know, there are victims of rape, there are victims of sexual abuse, etc. But it's even on that level, it's that, you know, can you not be consumed, and can you acknowledge that you are not your experience? You know, you are an evolving being. No matter what has happened to you, you are an evolving being, and you can keep walking, in that you don't need to be strangled by any experience or anyone else. I think that's.
And can you drop that story so that you're there and able to experience life storyless?
Yeah.
You know, when we're walking through life and we have this story of who we are and what's happened to us in our past, it's actually just affecting our ability to experience life to the fullest. It's a protection mechanism.
Yeah.
And it's like, if we can drop that and then just experience life every day as this fresh new thing, how much more is available?
Wow, storyless. I love that. I love that. Could you imagine sitting down for a coffee with someone? They say, "What's your story?" And you'll say, "It's just today. It's just today."
Yeah, it's just in this moment.
Yeah. There's no story.
Epic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that is epic. And what a beautiful way for even young women to grow up in that world, where it's like, you don't need to have a story to prove your worth. You know?
Yes.
You are here, and that's enough.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I really want to come back, actually, and I think it's a good time to you mentioning bringing men into women's circles, especially because of, if we use the word feminism here, a lot of feminism sometimes can be downing men, which is not what it's about at all, in my personal opinion. Feminism is about equality and a coming together. And, you know, that I love it when I see a guy that's like, hey, I'm a feminist, I'm all for it, you know, and that, I love that. And so I love your point about bringing men into women's circles. And there's some situations around the world where things like that are already happening, and they're reversing roles where, you know, the man will be kneeling, the woman will be standing, and they're just experiencing this new energy. And then they're interchanging and just seeing, you know, finding a balance and an equilibrium. And I think that truly is feminism, is that, you know, can we find that balance? And we come back to the divine masculine and feminine within ourselves to come together with another person.
Yeah, I think so just for clarity, masculine and feminine energies are available to all of us. It's not gender specific.
No, exactly.
And when I choose to talk about men and women, I'm talking about them both owning masculine and feminine. And then when I'm talking about masculine and feminine, I'm speaking to the energies.
Yeah.
But I think inviting men into women's spaces and women into men's spaces, we have so much wounding around the opposite sex.
Yeah.
So it's 100% becoming safe in women's circles, right? And exploring things in that safety, and being honored by your sister and breaking that kind of sisterhood wounds and all that stuff is amazing. And then just how much rapid transformation and healing can be done when there's men in the spaces also, because that's where so much of our wounding is, right? It's like, oh, I was disrespected by a man. Oh, I have daddy issues, like all this kind of stuff. And it's like, how can we transmute that faster? Oh, let's bring the men into the space and begin that reverence, because that is the piece that is missing, is the reverence and the honoring of each other's sexes. And that's within like the feminist community. So the feminists that's want to like tear the men down, right? Like that side of feminism, not all feminism, but that side of it, where we just want to like pull the men down and hate on men, and oh, he did this, and that's just classic, another man doing another thing. Like, understand, if you're a woman seeking a partner, you are never, ever, ever, ever going to find a man if you are saying, I hate men.
No.
And if you are saying the story of like, it was just, I'm just testing him, you know, like, what is that?
No.
Like, that's so, that is dead. That whole
so
way
dead.
of living is dead. And it's like, we need to come to a space where we're fully respecting each other and not moving from our wounding.
Absolutely.
Not moving from our wounding. And that is both men and women that are fully accountable for that. And this is why I believe that witnessing women and men in their pleasure is that space, because you start to see their softness, their vulnerability, their power, their erotic energy, their pleasure. You get to see them in all of their expression. And that's where you can be like, wow, this is pretty amazing.
And then you just reach such another level on your relationship as well. And it can be done in such small ways. I had the most beautiful experience even the other week, where I was sat around a campfire with a few friends, and a guy sitting next to me, really good friend of mine, I was talking about my series, Breathing Through Your Menstrual Cycle. And they sort of turn around, they're like, so that's really interesting. So you have a bit more energy at the start and then less at the end. And then is that just before you bleed? And was just so curious about a women's period. But that moment felt so sacred. And there was a pause, and he said, so you have to go through that every single month? And I said, yeah. And it's beautiful. But it's a journey. I said, every single month is a journey and a cycle and a chance to just be a little bit better every single day. And when I say better, I don't mean better for anyone else. I mean more connected to your inner being.
And now that friend sees you. Understands you more.
And I'm actually dating that friend now. So
beautiful. So, because you've shared this moment of intimacy, of just like vulnerability and expression, and he's like, I'm interested.
And that is just,
and I think we're all curious.
That's so attractive, to have to rather than, I'm on my period. Fuck that. It's like, no, hey, I'm bleeding right now. And so I'm feeling a little vulnerable today, but I'm also in my most intuitive time in the month. And then I say again, your friendships, doesn't matter if you're with someone or not, if you're with another woman, whatever, that communication on that level, to be able to say to your partner, I need 3 days to sit with myself, because my intuition is its loudest right now. I need to listen. And that's going to navigate the rest of my month. And that's so beautiful, rather than, I probably shouldn't say that because he might think this, or she might think this, or that. It's the unapologeticness without the ego.
Yep. And this all starts with having that relationship with self, because until we understand our physical bodies, and until we are okay with the way that we are as women, and we're okay with that we're cyclical beings, and that at this time of the month I feel more sexy, and at this time of the month I actually can't stand to be around anyone, and becoming okay with that, as opposed to feeling like we need to be this thing all of the time because that's what the independent woman is, or that's what this is, you know. And it's like, when we can drop all of that and actually be okay with our true nature, we can then share that with people. But until we have acceptance of ourselves, and until we have like full understanding of ourselves and willingness to share the parts of ourselves, it can't go anywhere. You know, you can't expect somebody else to understand you when you have no idea yourself. And then we're frustrated because we're not seen.
Yeah. What's the first step of that journey?
First step of what journey? Of like
this whole journey, even the journey you take women on, or just if someone is listening to this and is thinking, I have not even tapped into, 5% of this, of sacred sexuality, of experiencing my own pleasure. What's the starting point for that? Because even, it's so powerful and it's so wonderful, but on the flip side, it's very vulnerable, and it can almost feel overwhelming if you're like, well, this journey is huge, and okay, I want to go on it, and great, but where do I start?
You start by slowing down. You can never have a relationship with yourself when you are like full speed and avoiding yourself. So you just start by slowing down, and you start by introducing one thing a day. So whether that is just an opportunity for you just to like be present with your body and just start to feel your body, or whether it's 5 minutes a day just journaling and being like, okay, I'm noticing that I feel this. And like, I feel a little bit of this today, and maybe it's to do with this, but maybe it's to do with that, and just like start creating a dialogue with yourself. And I think the only way that you can do that is by slowing down. And even if it's just like breathing deeper is your first step, like understanding, okay, cool, so when I breathe, I feel my belly inflate, and then I feel my chest expand, and then when I exhale, I feel my chest soften and my belly. Okay, cool, now I can feel my shoulders. It's just like slowing down and finding a level of awareness. You cannot rush this journey. This journey cannot be rushed. It's a slow and it's a beautiful unfolding.
What's coming to me right now is my relationship with movement, and I know you have such a deep relationship with movement as well, and I know we've both explored the world of dance in terms of dance training, dance classes. I don't know about you, but I don't know about 1 second, let's start that again. How long did it take you to move without an expectation on yourself and without judgment of how you are moving? That makes sense. It took me a very long time to unlock just moving. And when I did, there were tears, it was such an unleashing of just moving. There was no music, just moving to my internal rhythm, to what I wanted, and not caring if I did look a bit sexualized or if I looked erotic, because I wasn't doing it for anyone else. How long was that a journey for you as well, unlocking movement within you and moving just to move by yourself?
So for me, the journey has been what has the journey been? The journey for me has really been about like safety within expression.
Exactly.
I've actually felt pretty comfortable exploring movement, but dropping out of the head and coming into the body is definitely a journey. That's a journey. And then like becoming safe in that. And my two biggest my two biggest journeys, but my two most like at home archetypes, and I can go a little bit into this, but they would be the wild woman and the seductress. And
Okay.
yeah, people listening, I don't know people's backgrounds with it, but archetypes are Carl Jung in the 1800s created this tool, I guess, and it's basically to do with the collective consciousness. So every single person in humanity has access to these different energies, and the wild woman is really like our primal nature. This part of us is pure kundalini energy, so it's just like this wild, and it's not necessarily erotic. It can be erotic, but it's more just like this primal expression that is definitely deemed as crazy in society. Like if we were to just walk down the streets just screaming and like shaking our bodies and growling at each other, we would be put in a psychiatric ward. Like,
well, we would, unless we were in a nightclub.
Yeah, true.
Because if you're drunk, it's okay, right?
Yeah. As if we're not hurting anyone, it's okay. Yeah. And then the seductress, which held a lot of shame for me. I really feared that sexual energy,
right?
And it's actually very alive in my body. I've always had her in me, but I feared this because it's so powerful, and power is scary.
It is,
right? Yeah. And learning to find safety to be in that expression has been the journey.
Right. And there's the maiden, the mother, right? As well.
The maiden, the mother, the dark mother, the lover, priestess. There's lots of different archetypes.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think movement is just so incredibly important because, again, it's a getting to know, it's an intimacy with yourself. It's an intimate experience with yourself. And even if it starts with movement that is prescribed, like yoga, that is a movement that you are following, but to really tune in to everything that you are experiencing, to then maybe start to experiment. And you're right, with the tiniest things, it can be so powerful.
I think like non-linear movement, right? It's like when we're on a mat or when we're on a spin bike, it's like this linear movement. And I think non-linear movement is just closing the eyes and just being like, okay, cool. So how does my body want to move? Like, where is it stuck? And really building that, like, on a very basic level, movement is just moving stuck energy. So we want to be moving every single day, whether it's erotically or whether it's like just for the sake of moving, whether it's to shake the body. Just like start to be curious. And it's like, oh, my body wants to move this way. It wants to move fast. Now it wants to slow down. And it's like, just be present.
Or emotion, energy and motion, right?
Exactly.
We can hold so much. And, I'm sure you share the same, that I've had so many emotional experiences with movements that, moving and tapping into just the weirdest part of my body. It could be like my third rib. And suddenly it just unlocks this stuck emotion that it could have been there for years,
Yeah. And just like when you're doing this, for those that are listening, just like, where am I feeling discomfort? Okay, cool. I feel pain in my right shoulder. Okay, cool. How can I breathe into my right shoulder? How can I just start to loosen that part of my body? And how can I be? Pain is calling for presence, right? It's like the part of your body that is like, hello, you've ignored me for so long. I'm going to make some kind of physical thing so that you actually listen to me right now, because I've been niggling for a long time, and now this is bad. So it's like, where in my body do I feel pain or tightness, like anxiety or tummy pains or whatever it is? Just like be present with it, and then like, okay, how does it want to move? Can I breathe into it? Like, can I create some space? And as you slowly start to move and breathe, does it begin to expand? Yes.
I love that. If it's okay with you, I really want to read something from your website that really moved me and ask you the story behind it to sort of, I think it'll beautifully wrap this up. Cool. All right. She is 2 feet on the earth, each step a reclamation, each step a sacred rite. She is a heart dripped in sex, the energy of the jungle in her bones. She moves with the hum of the huntress in her blood, stalking her growth, protecting her evolution. Within her eyes is a deep portal of knowing, where everything that isn't true falls from its power. Her lungs only accept the sweetest of air and use it to play the vibrations of the truest song your heart has ever known. Beautiful. Like, that moved me so deeply, especially her lungs only accept the sweetest of air and use it. What is the story behind that piece?
So a really beautiful friend of mine, Erica Perry, she channeled that for me.
Wow.
So yeah, we were on a training together and she kind of just tuned into my energy and my essence, and that is what came through for her.
Wow.
And that's like, yeah, my essence in some words. And yeah, just listening to it, I just had chills all over me, because I feel like it does really capture who I am and like the work that I'm here to share. And that to me kind of like encapsulates the feminine.
Yeah.
You know, like this sultry, wild, earthly being, you know, like I am very connected to the earth beneath me, and I'm very in my base of my body, so I'm connected to like the earth and the waters and the jungle and like that kind of thing. And for me, that is what being feminine is like this raw, primal, messy, expressive, deeply connected to the heart. Like, don't ever disconnect from the heart. The heart is the gateway, right?
Yeah.
But just like all of that being together, the heart, the sex, the wildness, just like fully expressed and okay to be expressed.
Yeah. Being a human in its rawest form, almost. It's like being expressive but being shapeless at the same time.
Yeah.
Can you be so fluidity. Yeah, can you be so connected to your inner being, so intimate with your inner being, that you don't need to adhere to any societal norm, that you are shapeless. And that's something I heard from Muji is be shapeless. Even with self-help, you know, it's so on the up and on the rise in the world that it almost becomes consumerist, that it's like, well, you're supposed to do this, you're supposed to do Wim Hof, or you're supposed to do, you know, this kind of meditation or this Kundalini yoga in this specific form at this time on this day. And you know, Muji was making a joke saying, oh no, we can't do that day because it's Earth Day, and we can't eat that day because it's this day. And he said, well, just be shapeless. What do you want to do today?
And that is the feminine. Right. That is the feminine, right? Is that it's
the void, the nothingness.
Yeah, it's just like tuning into that exact thing that's alive within you and going with that, you know, and it's like allowing yourself to have that fluidity, to be pulled by whatever is your truth. You know, it's not just like being pulled in any direction. It's being pulled to what is actually your truth. And that is the feminine. It, like you said earlier, the homecoming, it is like the landing back into your intuition so that you know.
100.
It's such an epic journey.
Oh, so good. 100%. Right. Where can people find your stuff? Where can people find everything that you've got going on right now? I know you've got some stuff happening. So where can people find you?
So you can follow me on Instagram. It's Melody Lubin. I run one-to-one containers, so 4-month one-to-one journeys. I'm also just about to launch an 8-month container. So that's going to be really intimate. I'm actually only taking 3 women for that. But yeah, follow my work on Instagram, and reach out, message me. I love connecting with people. I love chatting with people. I love just like hearing pieces of wisdom, and that's what I'm here for.
100%.
So reach out to me and let me know how you're going.
Amazing. How you going? There you go. That Aussie is coming in.
Oh, no!
Yeah, everything will be in the show notes, so it'll make it super easy. So just scroll down, click on Melody's Instagram and website, and just follow her stuff, because clearly it's such an important piece of anybody's spiritual journey. Everyone needs this. Man, woman, anyone. Yeah, Melody, it's been amazing. It's been a pleasure. I've learned so much. And it's been awesome to really reconnect.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you.